In today's episode, I'm talking to Dominique Woolf. Dominique was the winner of Jamie Oliver's The Great Cookbook Challenge. She is an author and has an amazing recipe book. She's a mum of three and also has a product line called The Wolf's Kitchen, which you probably will be able to get all around the country, wherever you might be. Today's episode is a conversation about reinvention. And I think we all have those times in our life where we know it's time to reconnect with ourselves and really think about what is next. And then once we've decided, actually doing something about it. Being brave, putting ourselves out there, having a go, experimenting. And Dominique's story is really about doing just that. I hope you enjoyed this episode. There is so much in it. If you did like it, please rate, review, subscribe. Come on over and look in my freebies house as well. There are lots and lots of resources to help you get started. But without further ado, here is the episode, and I'll see you on the other side. Dominique, welcome. Thank you so much for chatting and for being here today. I am delighted to do this in a lovely space rather than like wrangling kids on the school run. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's so good to finally speak properly.
I know, absolutely. So from my calculations, even though they're a bit sketchy, I think we've known each other about 4 years. And because I was pregnant with Luna and I had morning sickness and all of that. But I remember that is when you begun kind of moving back into food, and really, I think you were training lots. You had 3 little ones as well. And you were very much in that zone of let's go, let's do this, let's kind of figure it out. So how did that transition begin back into food?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had, as you say, I had 3 kids in quick succession. There's only about 16, 17 months in between each sort of one, each
Yes.
set, if you like. And I didn't have a career to fall back on. You know, I'd explored music for many years. That was my dream, to be a singer-songwriter. And at some point it dawned on me it wasn't really ever going to happen. I hit my mid-30s, so then I decided, right, it's time to have kids. But I went into it without a career. So when my littlest was 18 months old, which was about roughly 4 and a bit years ago, I had this crisis, and I think a lot of other mums may have similar sort of like, had my kids, now what do I do with my life? Because I needed a purpose.
Yes.
Having kids is hard work. It's a really hard job.
It's all consuming, and you're kind of piecing it all back together and then sort of going, oh, where am I in this? How do I put myself in?
And I definitely had a bit of an identity crisis, didn't know who I was, because everything I did before kids, I didn't do, whether it was going out or music or eating out in restaurants even, I didn't do any of that with kids. So did a lot of self-searching to find what I wanted to do. I looked at non-food options, working in charity, even should I do project management for in finance, all these things.
Yeah.
And then I realized it was staring me in the face. I had always really been into food. My Thai auntie had made these wonderful sauces. A couple of years before, when I was pregnant with my third, I did have a sort of briefly thought about doing food, and to the point I even went to some events and had a sort of mock-up of a product. When as soon as I realised having a third child was going to be all consuming, as you say, I put that on the shelf, and it was the wrong product anyway. But I went back to that and thought, hang on a minute, let's not discount this previous idea. And I just sort of thought, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. And it was a friend who said to me, oh, maybe you could do a pop-up. And I thought, oh no, I could never do a pop-up. And I thought, well, why don't I get some skills that could, if I wanted to, enable me to do that. I still don't want to do a pop-up, but
so maybe do the pop-up.
But I decided I would go to cookery school. So I thought I went to Leeds, which is sort of a gold standard of cookery school, and they do professional courses. Lots of food writers, people that write for magazines and write cookbooks, have gone to Leeds. And I thought, you know what, it's not going to help make my sauces, but in my mind I had this sort of plan that I would have one side which was food writing and one side which was the brand, selling this range of sort of sauces as it was at that time. So yeah, I started that journey, and I think one thing, and I know that we've probably spoken about this, is it's just getting started. It's just doing it. I found the courses, and I literally booked myself on a course to start in January. Sort of that, I think that was end of 2018 to start in January. So again, 4 years ago. And yeah, and I went for it. I did need a bit of a stiff deadline to get my sauces up and running though, because
Right.
I knew Leeds Cookery School, that was never going to help me with my sauces. And I've been talking about sauces, going to networking meetings, and then really I had a session with a coach, a one-off thing, and they were sort of talking about priorities, and I realized, right, if I want to start a brand, I have to just do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I am a big fan of, well, in the end, deadlines. I don't really love them, but I
They
need
like me.
yeah, I need a deadline to force my hand. So I
Yeah.
think it was in the summer, I decided, right, Logan starts reception, the other
Yes.
two are in nursery. I'm going to give myself a deadline of December, having my 3 sources in a farmer's market. So
Yes.
that was a deadline.
Great.
And that was how I did it. And, I knew it wasn't going to be perfect. It was just about getting that done. And I think that was a really key thing. And I do say to anybody, just start, just move in that direction,
Yeah.
because you can talk so much about an idea, and
Totally.
actually if you don't, doesn't matter if it's not perfect, you can iterate. You just need to get going, otherwise it will
Yeah.
never happen.
And you need to deal with real life people. I think that because of the internet and because we can kind of do our laptop stuff, that you can get not fixated, but you can almost have this imaginary situation. And actually, you have to talk to people. You have to see what they do, how they taste it, what's happening, what they're going to use with it. And they sort of slightly inform the brand, because they say, oh, I made this for Sunday lunch, or I put it with salmon, or whatever it might be. So it's really useful. So
Yeah.
with giving yourself that deadline, when and how did you begin? What did that process look like? Did you know how to source, as in,
Yeah.
did you know how to pull together the ingredients or packaging? Because I know that people would say, almost like everyone has a book in them, everybody has a product in them. Did you know anything about the logistics of how you actually bring something to life?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So for me, there's a lot of research involved behind that. I didn't just make them in my kitchen. So I mentioned I'd been to this event, probably 2016, maybe before I had my youngest. So I was in the food world in some respects. So there are various, and every different sort of category of products or service, every different category will have their own whatever the platforms are. So I knew that there was this Facebook group with over 10,000 people on it, that is run by the same people that run this very, very active community and annual event, but they did regular events, regular meet. I think it was at the time before COVID, monthly meetups. So I was going to events regularly before I started. I was going to startup events, so people to meet other entrepreneurs. I was going to food events. I was going to Virgin. I think at the time we're doing, I don't know whether they're still doing it, but Virgin Startup had various PR events, PR workshops, branding workshops. I mean, I went to loads of things like this. So I didn't just pluck it out of the air. I literally went to a lot of these events. And in fact, the last one I went to before COVID was, I think, early in the March 2020. Gosh, and it was doing business with big business, I think it was called. And it was all about how you get your brand, to how you develop it. And at that point, and in a way, it seems like yesterday that I remember it clearly, but I had this idea. I think I had just by that point maybe found a manufacturer, but even until that point, I had enough information to know some things that needed to be done. So there's the side of the actual product. When I started, I thought I would actually be making them on my own. And really, I did one session, I hired a kitchen brief, and I thought, no, this isn't going to happen. And then you realize that manufacturing doesn't have to mean I've got to place an order for 100,000 bottles. You can get a manufacturer that does 200 in an order. So then it becomes more realistic. And there are so many trade shows as well that certainly with food. I think I went to Specialty Fine Food. I spoke to a food mentor there. I went up to source stands and asked them how they did it. They probably didn't like me very much, but I just tried to get some information, looked at brands, looked at what people did, and made a note of what was going on. And then there's the whole branding. So there's the whole product side, which really is the most important thing, I think, when you're starting out. So I happened to Google someone I knew who had a hot sauce brand. He put on his manufacturer on his website. Actually, most people, is a closely guarded secret, but he actually did do that, and I called them, small manufacturer, and then that was it. I was with them for 3 years until very recently. So it's things like that, and also this particular Facebook group I'm on, you could put quick searches in, and people recommend manufacturers. So actually, there's a lot you can find for free on your own. And
I
then
think
there's
a great point you made about practicing and like just going out and starting to say something. I think it's really, really valuable, because I think when we all do something new, especially if we're having that, who am I, what identity, what's going on, we feel like we have to be the fully formed, polished product of it. And it's just really not the case. I think so many of those groups are really welcoming. You can get it wrong. You can say it's a bit of this and I'm not sure about this. And that's definitely what I want to do. But this bit I've no idea about. From my experience, everybody has greeted you warmly. And that's when you begin to piece the things together. It's not the other way round of having everything fully formed and then talking about it.
Definitely. And some of the questions I asked on the group before I, were, where can I buy some chilies? In the end, I was never going to buy 20 or 200 kilos of chilies. You ask these questions.
Unless you do your online shop wrong, which is what we've all done, where I'm like, why? How much ginger? Oh my God.
Yeah, we've all done it. But so, you've definitely just got to put yourself out there. And now that we're over the COVID sort of restrictions, meeting people, going and creating networking, going to networking groups and meetings, all of that is really, really important. So, just meeting your fellow food founders, your fellow entrepreneurs, all of that is feeds into it, and you can share stories. And then you sort of learn, on the job, if you like. So
yes. And it's all just building blocks. Like it's the picture starts to suddenly form, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what it is. So then, in terms of the branding, how did you do all of that work, I guess, of sort of approaching how these would be different in the market, and what was your process with that? Because I think behind the scenes everybody goes, hasn't this been done already? Or like, what would make me different? What was your thought process there?
So I'd obviously been to these various events and probably sat in on a number of talks on building a brand and what was needed, and the workshop I went to with Virgin Startup, talking, and I think there's a sort of various hierarchy, what are your values, and you fill in these, you do a little workbook as you're in this little workshop, and you fill in, what are your values? Oh, flavor, this or that or whatever. How are you different? What's your USP? And you fill all of this in. So you create something there. It's not, perfect, but you do brainstorming and a brain dump essentially. And those sorts of workshops help you sort of structure it. You create an avatar. So who's my ideal customer? And you don't really know. It's just plucked out of the air, and it's probably someone like you in reality. Oh, it's someone like me who likes spicy food and who shops at this place. But you start to form a sort of idea. And what they say is you can't market to everybody. Okay? No. Not everybody is going to like your products. So you just start off with one small category, and then it can grow from there.
Yes. I love the opposite question of that as well, of who is it not for? What is this not? That always really helps with loads of my clients, because sometimes feeling that you have to pinpoint the exact, I've got to have the finished product, actually by it's like the guess who thing of like, have they got glasses? No, it's, you can eliminate quite quickly, and then that's when you can really refine as well.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, things like the good old SWOT analysis, looking at who your competitors are, who you think, who I thought were my competitors is completely rubbish. I was like, oh, Blue Dragon do sweet chili sauce, great, but they're really not a competitor in the slightest. It's a completely different category. But you've got to start somewhere, because you don't really know necessarily. And you research, I think it's the 3 C's, your consumer, your category, and there's one other thing, competition. That's it. Okay, so you look at who else is in your space. What are they doing? What do those brands look like? For me, actually, it's an artisan brand rather than a big mainstream brand.
Right.
Who are my consumers that go to that show? What does the whole category look like as a whole? Where might my product sit? So there's all these sorts of various questions, and it once you do all of that, it just at least starts edging you forward. And you can pay a lot. I spoke to agencies before I created the brand. I spoke to agencies, and you can be quoted 10 to 70 grand. Okay, now that, to be fair, unless you have got big investment and you're very experienced, it's a waste of money. Complete waste of money at the early stage, because your product, you might realize it's not the product that's right. You might not enjoy doing it. You can't invest all that money to begin with. So there's a lot of sort of different, you start off small. I heard someone say it's the root of minimal investment. So you start off little footsteps. I'll do a batch of 200, then I'll do a batch of 500. I was fortunate that someone I know, who a local mum, she had just moved out the area, but she got in contact when she saw my post on Instagram, and she's a designer, and it turns out she's a really good one. So
Great.
actually, I worked together with her and her friend who's a copywriter, and then we came up with the brand by doing all this brainstorming.
Brilliant.
So, you know,
Brilliant.
I have a
And
team.
I think there's so much power and knowledge and data from a really solid first draft. Like once you've got the first draft version, then it can kind of begin to go out there. So then from your Instagram, you know, going out and talking to people and moving it into shops and finding those right places to home those. When you were going up to people and sort of, and I know so many of my clients and listeners have this, like, do you want to collaborate? And sometimes it's a sense of they're not really sure what they're asking for. They just want to make something happen. Have you got any tips of how to approach those kind of interactions? What really worked, what didn't? And then I guess once you've got a yes or a tell me more, has anything really helped kind of contractually or logistically in terms of making that relationship really thrive?
And are you talking about collaborations as in me selling my product into a shop, or
Yes,
actually?
yes, that if you do that, yeah.
I mean, it turns out it's very much a sales job. So having a food business isn't just about the creative side. And, you know, I did actually start off, I probably got nearly 10 years of sales experience in my early career, which actually came into great use, it turns out. It's not everyone's cup of tea. And that can be the hard thing, because when you start off, you know, you literally, I got on the phone and started calling my local delis. Now, some people favor the in-person approach. It happened to be COVID at that point, so it wasn't really suitable, and I had my kids at home. For me, actually, the phone works just well, and email, because a lot of delis, they don't necessarily want to be called. But you know what? I literally just made a list of the local ones.
Brilliant.
And got on the phone. And you know, people I think starting locally is a really important thing, probably in most businesses. I think maybe not tech, I don't know, but in a lot of businesses, starting with your local community is going to get you some great results. So it's going to build confidence, because I've stocked in a deli. They're more likely to stock.
And you can go and buy it, a friend.
You can buy it, so you can actually get people to that shop, so you can increase that rate of sale by telling your network. They're more likely to buy into you. Oh, hi, I'm a local artist, a local mom, a local food producer, whatever it is. People love that story. And you know, so then you can build it from there. So I really think that it's that definitely a personal approach. And I think something is staying local and going deep. I mean, this isn't necessarily how I've done it, but how other foodpreneurs I know who are very keen on this method, and I do see the benefits, is literally you go in 10 shops in Crouch End where we live, because then if someone goes into you, they may not buy your product with the first time they see it. It takes I don't know, they say 7 to 10 times for someone to see a product before they want to invest in it and buy in it. So the more they see it in their local area, the more chance they've got.
Nice. And
that totally makes sense. And it means that you can also service that client a bit more if you are local. I sort of went for a bigger approach. I thought, right, I'm just going to call, you know, if I see a deli in Scotland or a deli somewhere that's relevant, I'll contact them.
Great.
But perhaps the more targeted strategic approach, you know, I would recommend starting off like that, certainly. So I think you've got to be persistent, because even a deli, it can take me, in the past it's taken me weeks or months to get hold of someone in a deli, because they may not respond to their emails, they prefer a call, or vice versa. And so you do have to be persistent. And then when you get onto bigger sort of listings, that's a different, I'm sort of at that stage where I now have got my sights on the bigger sort of the next level of retailer. Now I will report back in a few months and tell you how long that's taken. So I've just sent
from my yacht.
Yeah, I will. It does take a while. You don't earn a lot. You know, food, it's a big cash investment with food. And that is something, if anyone's doing food or wants to, I think they do have to be aware of that, because you have to outlay all that money. Never mind the X thousand of pounds it may have cost you in the branding, but you have to lay out money to get thousands of units produced.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's a really great thing about what you said in terms of building that relationship and showing and almost showing and telling and being the salesperson in that, because people really love storytelling. They want to be able to say, oh, the owner has just dropped off some more, even though, you know, you might be with your trolley and your kids and it might be very stressful for you. But that whole process of it being, for example, you know, my mum and my stepdad, they've got your book, they cook from it all the time. For my stepdad's birthday present, I bought him like your sauce selection because they could make that connection. And I think it's I think it's that power of you as well, and having conversations and stories and things like that.
Yeah.
So now we fast forward to Jamie Oliver and going, right, okay, what did that process look like? And
Yeah.
I think also it's one of those things of, you know, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you know, I want the one golden ticket. And like, I've seen this, or the Spice Girls, we saw an advert in the paper. Where were you when the opportunity came up? And also what gave you that sense of like, yeah, go on. Yeah, I'm gonna have a go. Yeah, let's see. Because I think sometimes we all wait for the perfect time in that, or, you know, we don't put ourselves forward.
Yeah, I mean, I had always, since before I started the food brand, always wanted to be on TV cooking, because
Yes.
I've always thought this is going to be, without a doubt, the best thing that could happen to my career, you know. So I actually had always been actively looking for an opportunity. I probably applied to MasterChef a few years ago, but because I was going to cookery school, they don't let you in unless you go to
Right.
professionals. And I'm like, well, I'm not professional.
Right.
I'm very much a home cook who's done a professional course, but that's different.
I create my own genre here. That would be great. Yeah.
So I was always looking for that, and literally, you know, I got a message on Instagram saying, look, we're recruiting for this, not recruiting, but we're casting for this new program. Would you like to apply for it? And I thought, and it didn't say Jamie Oliver, it said about Cookbook, and I thought, this is perfect. It's not just about the skills, it's about a concept for a cookbook. And towards the deadline of the applications, I said, I just wanted to let you know that Jamie Oliver's hosting. And I thought, oh my goodness, I better get on with this.
Yeah.
So that was
a book or two.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, turns out he is probably my biggest food writing inspiration. I didn't really realize that, but just the really simple, down to earth approach, getting people cooking, very much in line with my sort of ethos. So I was so excited. I had my concept, you know, I did a 2-minute video, and there was lots of rounds of casting and virtual cook-alongs and things like that. And, you know, eventually found out I was on it, which was just the most amazing thing ever. And, you know, I think we're lucky because it wasn't when I say it's not as hard as going on MasterChef, because they gave you a bit more time. They were more nurturing in that sense.
Yes.
And it was a shorter program, so it wasn't, it wasn't over months and months. But it was, obviously, at the time, it was quite nerve-wracking because you didn't really. I knew I flew through the first round. I didn't know if I would, to be honest. I've said this before, but the first dish was a tamarind honey chicken tray bake, and I thought, my God, this is brown. This looks like, why on earth am I serving this? You know, this beige dish. When there were other people serving restaurant, there were a few chefs in there, and they were serving restaurant quality food. But actually, they didn't want restaurant quality food. They wanted home cooking that could be replicated. So I knew that the first 2 rounds I'd done well at, but then it got to, they couldn't get my concept, and this is where my Woolf's Kitchen training sort of kicked in.
Right.
Heard one of the judges refer to it as solutions cookbook, and I thought, I'd never heard that term. So then I turned it around. So the next judging thing, I said, this book is a solution. You know, this cookbook is a solution for people who love Asian food but don't know how to get started or don't have time. So I was there because, you know, when you've got a brand, you're always trying to find that solution. It's all about finding a solution to the customer's needs, their pain points. And I've always struggled with that in the Woolf's Kitchen, trying to work out, well, what is my pain point? It's a delicious sauce. How can I find that pain point? But because it's a familiar concept, I was able to use that. And one thing I did about 2 weeks before I went on the TV show was I'd entered into this competition called The Pitch, which is for startups to get the chance to pitch. I don't think you win investment, but it's in front of investors. Yes. And I thought at the time I just put myself forward, and I got through to the semi-finals just on my application. Wow. And it was an in-person event, first one after COVID. It was about the September or something, 2021, and that was really nerve-wracking because there's 40 people live, and that was great experience for going on the show a few weeks later. Yes. So, I wondered why I put myself out there, and that was why. So,
and of course, when we watch all the TV, then we don't see all the cameras or the lights or the people kind of milling around this. And naturally, taking all of that on is something to incorporate. And I love what you said about that you'd sort of done that work previously. And I think when people are starting, lots of people who listen are like, right, I want to start and I want to begin. And there's always this assumption that we're starting from zero. And so often we are not. We are bringing all these transferable skills from different walks of life or businesses or different, negotiation skills from trying to get our children to get in a car seat, etc. So, yes. So you won. How did that feel? How did that change things? And what are your next steps? What did that sort of open up for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's incredible because it opened up a whole new side of my career, which is something I'd always wanted to do, write a cookery book. So that's amazing. And I was thrown into, I had a very short deadline to write it. So literally full on 100%, had to, neglect the business for a bit, keeping it afloat, keeping it there, but just not able to do anything on it to get that book done. The ultimate aim is that both of those, sort of the side of the food product business, kind of not merges in the sense that it's a different thing, but they feed off each other. Because I haven't yet capitalized upon it because I've been so busy with the food writing. But now the business, I've been able to work on that for a few months. I'm doing some more writing, so that'll be exciting. Hopefully next year, some exciting news. So I think those both will hopefully, one will feed from the other and make each will be greater because of the other strands to what I'm doing. So yeah, I spent a whole summer doing food festivals on the chef's demo stage, which was great. And it just means that, now I'm officially a food writer because I have written a book.
Yes. And one of my questions was around, how do you structure your day in terms of, I think when we run our own gigs or we are really kind of making things happen or bringing ideas to life, or people talk in projects, don't they? I'm working on a project or I'm doing this. And there's only limited time in the week or in the day. How do you know what to put your focus on? Or do you have almost a checklist of, right, I now need to switch into this gear? Or how do you manage your week, your time, your energy in that way?
Yeah, it's really hard. You know what it's like when you've got kids as well to add into the mix. So basically, the Wolf's Kitchen has been sort of almost half my day dealing with various. Coming into Christmas, it was getting, oh my goodness, I'm spending half the day dealing with admin, operational issues, and not working on the project which I'm currently working on, which I've got a very, very steep deadline with. So now I've shifted gears. I have very thankfully managed to find someone who is now dealing with the admin side. So 8 hours a week, it's just enough so that I can, I've been training this person, but that really helps because those hours are crucial. So I'm literally now, I will spend probably an hour or two in the morning still doing Wolf's Kitchen stuff. I mean, it's I can't not, but I'm trying to then, I've got to be in the kitchen and I've got a really tight timetable of what I'm cooking because that's what I'm doing at the moment. And I have probably left it a bit late. You just have to, when I'm in this zone of deadline, I literally go, right, okay, 4 recipes a day. These are I've got a spreadsheet even with all my recipes on it.
Love a
so
spreadsheet.
It's ridiculous because then I can look at it at a glance and go, right, this is this section, this is that section. This is what I need to work on. And I'm literally going, right, 4 a day, this is what I'm doing. And I'm working backwards going, okay, well, if my deadline's in 8 weeks, what do I need to do by this point? And it's really tough with the kids because, even though my mum collects them from school, they're still here from 3:30, 4:30. And it's really then they want my attention because I'm here in front of them. When my husband's in the loft and actually they don't go up to him all the time. But I'm in the kitchen, so it's impossible, and I think I will do this deadline. I will, because I haven't really got a choice. I will have to work in the evenings, writing things out. It's just what's going to have to be done. I'm not going to falter on this deadline, and it will happen. So there's that sort of resolve.
And how do you keep yourself energized and inspired, and when you have to do things, like you're in that good frame of mind that is good to go? Because I think this notion that, well, I'm a creative person and it will just come to me. For me, it feels like I have a relationship with it. It's a muscle that I need to build. And if I don't do it for a while, almost the creativity's like, yeah, I thought we thought you'd gone. Like, what's happening? Like, we haven't seen you for a while. And I know that has to be down to me. For example, I almost said to my mum, I've got a really busy day today, I'm going to cancel yoga. And she said, no, go, because those are the fundamental parts of your life that everything else stems from. So what are those things for you?
Yeah, I think so. There's a few things. Is that I do love running actually, but I've injured myself. So in this, last year I was every morning. I would get up, kids would have breakfast.
Yeah,
I'd have organised enough that I could do half an hour HIIT while they did that. So I'm very good. For me, that isn't an issue. Once I know I want to do something, I think the night before you have to plan it.
Yes.
You have to have your stuff laid out. You have to know that's what you want to do. I'm trying to get back into running after injury, so it's not like I'm in the everyday mode. And this morning I woke up and I had a shower, and I'm like, why have I had a shower? I could have gone for a run, because I was out of that thinking because of being injured. But after this meeting with you, I am actually going to treat myself to half an hour. I've got a lot to do, but I'm just going to do it, because I think that half an hour run will do me good, and I need to do it. So I think you have to plan that kind of thing into your day, because it won't happen. It's very easy to sit here, and as soon as I've sat down at my desk, it doesn't happen. So personally, for me, I prefer to do it before. Although today is an exception. The other thing is that with this deadline, I had a bit of a low phase actually before Christmas. And I think you can't always be on an up phase. And there was a lack of I literally had no mojo. I was feeling quite despondent about everything, despite having had a great year. But the very fact I have this deadline means I literally have to throw myself into it. There is no time to think. I am just doing it. I'm not thinking, I am doing. And that then pulls you out of that state, because there's no option. I have to do this. I can't sit around going on about how terrible I feel, which I was doing before Christmas.
Yes.
I don't have the luxury of time. I just have to do it.
And that assumption, you sit on your front desk and then motivation be like, oh, great, I'm going to come along now and scoop you up. You have to meet it halfway every single time. And
just do it. When you've got action is really, really key, I think, with all of this we've been talking about, from starting to continuing with that deadline, just doing it. Get in the kitchen, just for me, cooking, I have to do it. So there's no option. There isn't an option, really.
No. And holding yourself accountable to those standards for yourself, because I sometimes have to have those strong words with myself of, I'm very good at doing the vision boards and the goal list and things like that. And then I'll have a moment, I'm like, but none of that is moving forward. Why isn't that? And sometimes I have to unpick it and like, it's because you're scared, Nicky. That's why you're not doing it. It's because it makes you feel vulnerable, and you're like, oh, okay, that's what it is then. So it always feels like I'm turning up the brightness and going, okay, it's like having a grumpy child. Okay, you just need a snack. Right, fine, let's do that. So in terms of people finding out more, and if they want to buy the sources, if they want to buy the book, where is the best place to go?
So I'm obviously on Instagram, which is Dominique Woolf. The Wolf's Kitchen is the Wolf's Kitchen on Instagram, and that's 2 O's. I have the Wolf's Kitchen website. The products are on Amazon in the UK, certainly. They're in about 125 co-op stores, and the product listing is on my website as well. So Instagram and website is basically where you'll find more information. And the book is available in all good bookshops and also online. So
good. So good. Well, I'm delighted, and I just can't wait to see what you do next, because I know there's all kinds of things bubbling. So how exciting. And what a brilliant thing to do in the sort of the 40 plus years of going, okay, great, let's do this now. Let's take life on this turn. I think it's brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much. I like to think that, let's not be restricted or limited by age, and it's easy to feel like that, but actually let's just do it. It isn't, you're never going to be, I love this, you're never going to be as today's the youngest and the oldest you'll ever be.
I know, that blows my mind.
The youngest you'll ever be.
Totally. And I always think, those moments where you had to do everything by 19. Actually, I was a bit chaotic at 19, and you wouldn't have been able to do all of the things anyway. So with hindsight and wisdom and all of those great things, it's a brilliant time. So thank you so much. All right, bye. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.